The first thing that I've realized about K-pop is that things happen that y'all want less or more of which y'all complain about, but the mainstream side of K-pop overshadows it even when Nugu companies do it a lot or do it less. I've made that take before and this take is an updated version. I'm not saying, look at Nugus, they have more of what you want. I'm saying, quite a bit of Nugus do what you want and don't do what you hate, but the mainstream side of K-pop overshadows the Nugus, making you think that everyone is the same. The mainstream side of K-pop gives you the idea that the whole industry is like this when it's not, because once you dig deep through Nugu artist you'll see that this is not the case and you will find things that will change your viewpoint. In my opinion, Nugus are what ties K-pop together because of how they have answers to what y'all complain about, since y'all complain about different things that otherwise make me not care about these things, because I know that it's not worth complaining since Nugus will give me the answer pretty easily if I dig deep myself. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that, coming back to the point about how things happen in K-pop but it's overshadowed by the mainstream side, I've realized that a lot of K-pop stans complain about things because they don't like looking beyond the mainstream side of K-pop, looking at artists that are less popular. I've said so many times about how Nugus do what you want. How you should look for more artists and look beyond the mainstream side and things like these, but I don't think people actually care about these things to want more or less of them if I only see them complain about it and the complaints are not valid, like for example talking about how minors are debuting a lot in the industry even if adults exist, but they're just complaining instead of actually having a valid reason to talk about minors, like in the sense of minors' safety. Lots of K-pop stans in my opinion just complain about these things to complain even if solutions exist, and I don't think they actually care enough to wanna find or check out solutions to promote them to bring change. I believe they'd rather just scream their lungs out hoping for someone to agree with them and that's it, and they move on with their day. I've made quite a lot of videos of debunking things because K-pop stans keep complaining about things, looking at only a couple of groups in the mainstream K-pop sphere, which showed that I cared to show people the reality since people never wanted to do it themselves, but now I've stopped since it looks like people don't actually care, and if something new arises that is being complained about a lot and the answer is beyond mainstream K-pop, I won't go anymore to research and make a debunking video because I'm officially done trying to debunk things if these complaints keep going on and new things to complain about keep arising. K-pop stans can see for themselves, but do they actually want to see, or do they just want to look at mainstream artists doing something for them to complain about? Because if K-pop stans cared, I wouldn't be bringing up this point for this video and in a way the other previous complaint point too, and also they'd be less yapping coming from them. If the yapping is just yapping and not anything valid, that would make me be okay with their complaints. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that I don't think K-pop stans are really K-pop stans if they're complaining about different things, and I don't mean complaining about things and having a valid reason to do so like I've mentioned in point 2, but what I mean is that K-pop stans, some of them, are not really K-pop stans if they're always just complaining about things in K-pop, like how they're saying K-pop is becoming this, K-pop is becoming that. If you hate these things so much, then why are you still listening to the artists that are making you complain if you're gonna continue complaining? Why can't you just be a real K-pop stan who has less complaints by finding music that will make you complain less, finding artists that will make you complain less? If you're just complaining about things multiple times and doing nothing about it, that's on you and not on the K-pop industry, because you can fix it but you choose not to, exactly like the part 2 point. If you were really K-pop fans, you would try to find enjoyment in the genre as well instead of just trying to be bitter all the time, and again this is for K-pop stans who just complain all the time and the complaining is just cranky crybaby and not valid. I've said this before that you should just leave K-pop if you're complaining mostly and nothing makes you happy. If K-pop is not bringing you joy, there's no point in staying in the same area of K-pop that gives you bitter feelings. Just go, because it's that simple. You can be bitter all you want but nothing is gonna change by your complaining, and you can't keep crying all the time expecting people to listen. You have to do something or just let go. You're just gonna hate K-pop by the end of it because you're looking at only the negative parts, which is not a positive thing. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that I saw an opinion on a short that said, IVE is one of the only group with more Korean songs and lyrics nowadays, and I'm like, how do you know that's true? Since looking at this opinion made me realize that K-pop stans who say, X thing is more in K-pop, which they hate, and X thing is less in K-pop, which they want more of, or say things like the IVE opinion, are K-pop stans who actually don't know anything because of how limited they are in the groups they know of being mainstream K-pop mostly listeners. Many K-pop stans saying these things, unrelated to the previous point about complaining but not actually doing anything about it, showing that they don't care about the thing they complain about, are K-pop stans who've yet to explore K-pop and keep themselves boxed up in a small room with 5 to 6 K-pop groups instead of just exploring the whole house. I've said this many times, because K-pop stans who know more groups, artists won't be saying things like this unnecessarily unless they actually have a valid reason to say things and/or complain about things. You never know anything is actually true in K-pop at all, maybe the mainstream side, but that makes up only some of the industry, and the mainstream side doesn't speak for noogas who don't all do the exact same things K-pop stans hate the mainstream side for. What you say is only a half-truth and not what the whole picture shows. And IVE definitely is not one of the only groups to have more Korean in their songs, since so many groups debut going unnoticed and y'all only check out the bigger, more anticipated debuts and don't check out anyone other than who are from the biggest labels or non-big 3 and hype labels but are hyped pre-debut. So whatever y'all say is automatically only half true, since y'all don't look at a lot of groups for y'all to make a take that's valid, and that I would say, yes, I agree, unless I see the same amongst the majority of noogas too, which would be highly unlikely given how many noogas actually debut within a year, month SND every year. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that when people say, K-pop is not about the music anymore, it made me realize that they're more focused on the K-pop groups making music that doesn't feel like real music anymore. I mean, sure, you're allowed to critique K-pop groups and say these things, but K-pop is still about the music if you dig deep enough to find the music. I've said this many times before about how K-pop is not a small industry but rather a big place where new artists are releasing music every day, month, year, and so much music is released. How can you say K-pop is not about the music anymore, when you don't know for sure if it's not? Since going back to my previous point about IVE, the mainstream side doesn't speak for everyone. You'd have to actually analyze enough K-pop songs to make that claim. You can't just be looking at the 10 most popular groups or known groups and then say these things while completely ignoring groups who don't gain success at all, who are still releasing music that shows you that K-pop is about the music. Nothing can be completely true about what you think it is, unless noogas or less popular groups or groups outside the same circle of groups you listen to is also following suit, but you have to see if they're following suit and not just make claims that are not fully researched on. So before saying these things, think first. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that Attract is not completely terrible now that I've seen Kina stay. She may have been exposed to some information about the controversy that she didn't know before, which made her see things differently. Not sure if that is the case, but Kina staying made me more towards wanting to be on Attract's side and not support Bloom, the former members, and only for this controversy alone, and not because of them as a company, since I'm not fully familiar with them as a label to know what goes on behind the scenes. I only choose to give support to Attract and support 50-50 simply due to Kina not leaving with the others, which I noticed, and to me that is logical in my reasoning to support them, because if I were to support Bloom, I would have no reasoning as to why I support them. I as a channel and K-pop stan want to give my honest thoughts, and if my honest thoughts come off as wrong, then you guys can correct me. I don't want to blindly support anyone if I don't have a logical reasoning as to why I support them. My support for Attract is only due to Kina's stay, which tells me that her thoughts might have changed, which led her to stay, and also I'm not Kina, and I don't know what was her reasoning to stay, but that made me think that Attract may have some form of innocence in this controversy. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that people say, BTS paved the way, or, 5th gen has started, and other things they definitely do not think critically about. They say it, but did they actually say it based on their knowledge? And if someone asks why did they think so, they can respond as to why they think so instead of giving a response that is just something anyone would give as a response, which is not their own personal thinking, basically meaning that it's not an auto-generated response that anyone can give but rather your own valid reasoning. Do they actually believe it with knowledge that can convince others to think about their reasoning as valid? And I've never thought of it like that before. Or maybe, as I've said many times, people saying things because of herd mentality and following the crowd. Saying BTS paved the way is one thing, but explaining it deeply as to why is another thing entirely, and explaining it deeply in a well-informed way is also another thing. So yeah, saying these things just won't cut it, because if you cannot explain why, you're just like others who agree blindly to things and spread them around without questioning things and thinking, is this true or not? The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that BTS never paved the way. Yes, I know that many people have had this take, but let me share my reasoning as well from my own perspective as to why I also think so. I did say it briefly in my previous upload about reacting to dumb and disagreeable opinions, and this is the same but more detailed. My take on BTS didn't pave the way is because they only paved the way for themselves and didn't actually break open the Western market for other groups. Yes, we've seen other groups on news shows, Coachella, performing on talk shows, even 1 to 2 winning awards, but there's nothing major about K-pop that makes me think that it's bigger in the West when people mostly still only know BTS and Blackpink unless they're a K-pop stan. Have you seen anyone else on talk shows, besides performing, doing full interviews besides Blackpink and BTS members or them coming as solos? Plus, looking at the award thing and performing on talk shows, that was also done in the past as well, a little less I believe so, like with Girls' Generation performing on David Letterman, Wonder Girls performing on Wendy Williams, Girls' Generation winning a Western award etc., and more things. So I feel like K-pop now has not been paved into by BTS in the West when it still feels on the same level as before BTS in the West. And BTS's worldwide success helped them and them alone, because which group has really truly made it in the West? If groups are selling good at their concerts in the West or doing decent in the West, it's mostly mainly due to K-pop Western stans supporting them and not everyone as a whole. So yeah, that's my logical reasoning. BTS never really paved the way despite doing great things, and despite y'all saying so, I don't believe it, and I wanna know if someone exists out there who can logically disagree with me and give me a new perspective on why they did pave the way when I believe they didn't. The next thing that I've realized about K-pop is that when people say an idol has good talent, do they know the talent is good? Because most live performances, if not all, are lip-synced, so how do fans really know if an idol is truly talented when they've mostly only heard fake edited or produced in the studio vocals and nothing really lived to show if the group actually has the talent or not? So how would you know without knowledge on the talent you say an idol has or a group has? Tell me. I've realized this and I'm just like, why? Why do people act like they know talent when they don't? Because no matter how you look at K-pop stans talking about talent being good, there's always different reasons as to what K-pop stans say about talent not being true, because they don't really think critically to actually know the truth about the talent. The idol or group they say is talented could not actually be talented, and these people saying they are probably just blinded by the lip syncing and other things that make them believe the idol is talented, but we need the evidence from an actual live showcasing of the talent for us to believe y'all. The last thing that I've realized about K-pop is that I've talked about before how K-pop stans can think of new opinions but choose not to, and use repeated takes probably for the views, but I've also realized that maybe they can't think originally at all and use overused takes or mid-takes or surface-level takes because they wanna make unpopular K-pop opinions knowing it's a view-bringing video idea. They cannot actually think, but they still do the videos, shorts anyways with outrageous titles and thumbnails knowing that people will wanna click, and since a lot of people watching are also people who can't think critically or originally to notice for themselves that these takes are repeated or mid or surface level, the channel gets the views because nobody really questions it. I've never really seen much of it besides me. These channels cannot think for themselves but still get the views regardless because of K-pop stans who exist who'll eat that shit up. Probably someone who'll agree not knowing the takes aren't original or are original but surface level, or someone who is immature coming to attack.